Hello, everyone. Today we are going to explore this quantum upgrade. Imagine what if your genes aren't a permanent rulebook or a blueprint, but they are a flexible code waiting for your update. Imagine that you have this power just like updating an app, but you are updating the information in your genetic blueprint. So for decades, we were taught that our DNA is set in stone and that we are passive victims and printers of whatever the script we inherited, and we are constantly worried or fearful. But now we know by groundbreaking science that reveals that a massive plot twist is happening, which is this amazing phenomena called the epigenetics of your body. You are not the printer now, you are the coder, you are the programmer, you are the creator of this experience. And the easier you see yourself as this powerhouse of connecting your heart and your brain and creating a coherence loop, the easier it's going to be and to break down how the subatomic physics and the cellular biology meet to give you active control over your physical body. And here are two key ideas why you need to stay until the end. The 8-hour software patch, which is called the mindfulness as the DNA coding system, there is a very big landmark study that proved that just 8 hours of focused mindfulness acts like a biological software update. Why? Because it actively down regulates the inflammatory genes such as RIPK2 and COX2 and unspools your DNA, liberates some of these tightness, and allows the reading of healthier DNA sequences to access health promoting states. So, conscious focus physically changes how your code is read. So, the social DNA hack is the second idea that I will share with you in a deeper way, and how your cells are always texting. Yes, you listen correctly. Your cells are always texting. What are they texting? They text small packages of information which are health code systems. Your cells don't live in isolation. Just as many, many years ago, they ingrained that idea in your mind. They are constantly sending this group text through all your cells, through all your organs, and through tiny base vesicles called exosomes. And I will talk more deeply about these particles. When you shift your emotional state and the environment, of course, from fear to love, to community, to support, to trust, and you have genuine connections, your cells broadcast a brand new message that immediately shuts down the chronic stress signals and turns on your health code. So instead of climbing the exhausting mountain of chronic stress or feeling that you don't have any power over a disease state, quantum tunneling, I will explain this process because this is not just happening in the physics or in the universe, it's happening within you. This quantum tunneling system will give you the straight cheat code into healing. And I will explain also how do your mitochondria act as the boss, sending the memos, sending the text messages to rewrite your health from the inside out. So it's not the other way around. So you have to change how you are experiencing your own health with interoceptive messages, which are those messages that we perceive when our body is sending us these signals that we need to pay attention to before we get the disease. So stay until the end because I will explain all of this in detail. So the first thing that I want to explain is the old story. What was the old paradigm? For decades, we were taught that we had a rigid, deterministic story, that your DNA is a static blueprint printed in unalterable ink. dictating your biological destiny. So you were a victim. You didn't have any input in your health. Well, turns out that this central dogma left us feeling like a passive victim of our genetic inheritance. But nowadays, molecular epigenetics has changed this game by showing that we have chemical switches that act like dimmer dials on our genes, changing how the genes are going to be read. The genome is a fluid, quantum coherent system. And this is the keyword that I want you to remember for a future explanation. Coherence. Coherence is the keyword that you need to stay with. Your genes exist in a superposition of health or disease. You choose what are you going to experience. Today, we step on this ladder of knowledge and freedom of quantum epigenetics. The biophysics reveals that your genome is actually this fluid quantum system that is constantly navigating a cloud of multiple health and disease possibilities, because every day we have experiences that can lead us into health or into disease, and depends on how conscious and engineer you become of your biology. How do I explain this into an everyday analogy? Well, think of your DNA not as a heavy, unchangeable paper encyclopedia, but as an interactive tablet. And think that you have this tablet and this huge amount of information, which the software update that adds new settings is you, is your mind, are your thoughts. So quantum epigenetics is the touch screen itself responding instantly to the lightest subatomic touch of your lifestyle and the environment to launch an entirely different app. What app are you going to use in your days? The health app or the disease state, the victim state? What are some key facts that I can give you about this story? Well, there is, as I mentioned, a historical shift that was moving from Schrodinger's 1944 deterministic aperiodic crystal model of the DNA to a fluid, quantum coherent biological system that is constantly upgrading the information with the level of vibration that you are sending through these text messages. There is a subatomic layer. How gene expression actively responds to the subatomic information? Well, it changes the spin, it changes how it turns, let's say, from direction. It also changes the charge, positive or negative, and it changes how it interacts with a system called proton tunneling. So, how it transports from one part of your cell to the nucleus. How does this information arrive? So, this is just like science fiction. Now, how does this process happen? How does a thought or a state of mind physically changes a gene? It happens along the double helix. The DNA acts as a highly conductive quantum wire. As electrons travel down this spiral, they undergo a filter process called spin selectivity, which is the way these electrons are moving in the direction. And this direction of the electrons uh, dictates how the enzymes will bind to your DNA to turn the genes on or off if they are not being able to be read, just like my hand did. Closed DNA states don't allow the reading process to happen, so they create certain kind of diseases. When you allow the unwinding of the DNA and you can read the whole information, you start creating healthier states. So when you are in a state of chronic stress, let's say that you have a bad day in your office, your genetic possibilities are like spinning a coin. You are caught in a chaotic blur. But you can change this. When you practice deep mindfulness, you act as an observer and you have the power of creating this conscious effect into what is going to happen. There is a landmark study that showed that just 8 hours of mindfulness practice physically collapses this web of function, rapidly turning down inflammatory fire alarms that turn off, of course, all of these stress signals, and they turn on these genes like RIPK2 and COX2, and they open up the chromatin to allow health promoting transcription when you down regulate this fire alarm system by your mindfulness, by your thoughts, by the practice of relaxing yourself and start creating this environment in all of your life. So the everyday analogy, imagine that you have a row of dominoes and you have the power, or imagine this is easier, I think. Imagine that you flip the coin and as an observer, you have the power of allowing the coin to fall into heads instead of tails. Heads represent health, tails represent disease. Well, if you become the observer by these mindfulness techniques and you practice and practice and practice meditation, starting by just 10 minutes in your days, you will become an expert in the way you handle your thoughts and you regulate the processes within your system. So you will be able to um, predict and influence how this coin is going to land on heads, so on the state of health, instead of leaving the possibilities to chance. Because leaving the possibilities to chance is becoming the victim, is becoming a person that doesn't think they have any kind of input in their health state and they just live mindlessly like zombies and they consume toxic information, of course. So if you become this mindful observer and you regulate your health, you, and this is proven by science, you down-regulate pro-inflammatory genes, the ones that I mentioned, RIPK2 and COX2, and alongside these processes, you also open the enzyme suppression system in your code so that it can be read, and then you start stacking interactions that support quantum coherence via overlapping vibrations of your thoughts. So every day you are changing the way you are sending these messages to your cells. So let's understand this process in a deeper way. We have a system that works just like the Wi-Fi that you use every day. So how your social environment can program your cells. We used to be cells as isolated, as just far from our, let's say, input in what we can send information or impact the way they are going to act. But turns out that they are not. In truth, your cells are deeply entangled with your social, and pay attention to this, social and physical environments. So they physically connect one another through long microscopic breaches called tunneling nanotubes, just like the ones that are here depicted in this image. So these long breaches, they are called the tunnel, and they share energy between the organelles. Because of this, your subjective perception of your social world is mapped onto your genome. So your thoughts, if you are consuming news, what kind of thoughts are you going to have? Fear, you are a victim, you start having thoughts about being isolated, being rejected, being not understood, etc. So, under chronic isolation or these social threats that you can just trigger by watching this media, your nervous system triggers a CTRA genomic signature. This is a region of your genome that spikes systemic inflammation, and it cripples your antiviral defenses. So you become uh, um, an easy prey for diseases. But here is the social DNA hack. What if you stop watching this content and start watching how you can impact your body? And then shift your subjective environment to one of feeling safe, feeling that you have community that supports you, feeling that you belong to these kind of people. This completely reverse the genetic signature. The cell packages that these new recovery instructions by your thoughts are being sent into tiny biological exosomes, which are these data packets that they are pointed out in the image. So these exosomes, what do they do? Well, turns out that they broadcast through the blood and they reprogram distant organs. Yes, you listen correctly. You are creating a, let's say, a group text message that is sending instructions of health to your organs, to your cells that are even far away, and they travel through this tunneling system and through this microtubule and nanotubes system. So imagine that you live in this beautiful neighborhood where all of the neighbors know each other. They have a WhatsApp group and they communicate with each others. They rely on each other. They support when they need help. They create this system so that everyone can support each other. Imagine this system or this neighborhood. Well, yourselves all the every day they create these neighborhoods because they always communicate with each other and they always support each other. So when there is a threat, they send the message and they turn the fire alarm system and your chronic stress goes up and you are in this victim state and you start creating these loops, these emotional let's say ruminative states that will lead you to depression or anxiety. But in the opposite side, when you have a supportive network and you send messages of love, support, trust, safety, community, all of this creates and reprograms the state to be at ease and to be in a health state. This is the intercellular connection, which is called tunneling nanotubes that physically transfer these electrical signals because we are light, we are electricity, we are these electromagnetic frequencies that we change with the power of our thoughts. And your mitochondria are the ones that are controlling many of these processes. Your genomic shift is the adversity and the perception that you have. So the faster way to health is by your thoughts and, of course, creating um, healthier, let's say, routine ritual that stacks habits, such as having, of course, a much healthier nutrition, a much healthier exercise program, sleeping your 7 to 9 hours, and also regulating your emotions. Just a fun fact, these exosomes, these particles, they are 30 to 150 nanometers, so they are microscopic vesicles, but they carry regulatory microRNA sequences. Yes, you heard correctly. These microRNA systems, they are algorithms of information. And this algorithm is going to create the signals across your body of the instructions of health. Now, what happens in these quantum leaps that we can start creating? Taking the shortcut through chronic stress is a reality. The old way is the slow recovery, the victim state where you don't have any power. That is the trap. Chronic stress locks the body into a self sustaining disease loop at the bottom of a deep energetic valley. Pushing out traditionally requires massive energy because it's as if you have to climb this mountain that is represented here. Well, turns out that you can learn how to build a tunnel through the mountain. Subatomic particles inside your DNA and cells frequently bypass these physical barriers through this quantum tunneling system. The leap is when high coherence interventions, such as these meditative states, trigger a biological phase transition. So your body doesn't have to climb the mountain of stress, it can tunnel directly through it, instantly stabilizing a healthy, recovered state. So this is the abundance state. This is the coherence that you can create between your heart and your brain. And remember, and I made an episode about it, and you can just search in the episodes in my channel. Your heart perceives and receives the information even seconds before your brain, and your heart controls more the messages within your body than your brain. So an everyday analogy that I can give you is, imagine if you have always have to climb always mountains of let's say recovery or healthier states. You wouldn't be able to do that every day because you would be tired and you would start creating these loops that you are a victim, and you will start having these apathy states. But what happens if you discover that you can create this tunnel system and you don't always have to climb? You just have to align yourself with your heart and your brain and start creating healthier habits that can start very easy and very short habits to create this connection with your body and to create this system that will allow you to have the health that you want without thinking about it, just creating the habit. And then you will arrive much faster to the process of being healthier. And you will arrive to a place where you can feel when your body is texting you that something is not in alignment with you. And this means that whenever you have tickle in your throat and you start feeling symptoms that you have lower energy, you immediately uh, create or apply a protocol of taking care of yourself. You disconnect from any stressor signal, you start having pauses meditate short meditations, resting more, having more fluids, sleeping well, all of these things that you can do, and then the disease never happens because you just pay attention to the signals that your body is sending you. So if we pay attention to the whole texting that our body is doing through these interoceptive systems, we will be able to arrive to a process where we create tunnels every day. And instead of being in this deep, sad valley of becoming a victim, we create a state where we can transition into health faster. Now, finally, you will become the master translator and you will lock in the quantum upgrade within your DNA. How do we physically lock in this quantum leap of healing? Well, it happens through mitochondrial retrograde signaling. And these words look like they are complicated, but it's not that complicated. We used to think that the mitochondria were just these powerhouses and they just produce ATP. Well, turns out that they are the primary quantum sensors. When they detect a shift in your energetic and mental state, not just in the energy, but also in the mental state, they send biochemical text messages directly back to the nucleus of the cell. And they translocate, so they transfer specialized peptides and key metabolic molecules like SAM, which is a molecule that activates some of these adenosine receptors, and it starts creating these bonds that allow your healthier regions of your genome to be exposed and be read, and also starts liberating a molecule called acetyl-CoA, which is one of the most important molecules in the Krebs cycle, which is one of the most powerful metabolic cycles in your body because it practically feeds more than 100 biochemical reactions. So these molecules act as biological keys that open up tightly unwound chromatin fibers in the nucleus, and they unlock the genes of recovery, and they physically rebuild your epigenetic landscape so that the instructions can be read and they can start creating healthier proteins, healthier environment. So think of your mitochondria instead just of a power generator as a highly advanced air traffic controller. When they sense a shift in your metabolic and energetic weather, they send chemical text messages with these two molecules that I mentioned, SAM and acetyl-CoA, and straight to the cellular headquarters, which is the nucleus, where the DNA is under this vault, let's say. And once inside, these molecules act as master keys that unlock tightly closed filing cabinets, the closed chromatin that can't be read, and they spread out the blueprint and the healing across the multiple information systems that you can create. So, in short, you are not a victim of your inherited code. Through intention, through connection, through energy, you are the conscious engineer of your physical reality. And you can remodel how the chromatin and how the regions of your genes are going to be read instead of being the victim that thinks that it doesn't have any power or any input, and they keep feeding loops of toxic mentalities because they are polluted with the information that they consume. So this is how you can be a translator of your health instead of the victim. And you can decodify the messages that you want to send throughout your cells by the mitochondria. So, what are what are some of the experiences that you have had in this healing process whenever you have a disease? Have you ever been able to perceive your inner health so that you pay attention to the messages? Share with me your in the comments. How have you experienced disease? How have you experienced the different sensations that your body is texting you with the messages that you should pay attention more? And let me know if you have someone that you know that controls more these processes, these thought processes, so that they control how do they feel. And I'll see you and listen to you on our next episode. Thank you, and remember to subscribe to the channel and to send this information to your family members or loved ones. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.